Self-awareness is a journey, not a destination. We're not working towards becoming self-aware. We already are aware on a level. So if we can understand the different levels, we're going to be able to better appreciate where we're currently at on our self-awareness journey. Thus, we're also going to be able to better appreciate how it is that we have scope to grow and mature. Thus we grow in insight, thus we grow in wisdom and knowledge and comprehension. Make sense? Comprendez-vous? So I talked about self-awareness as being one of the components of the wise mind. All right, thus now I want to expand upon this idea. So Ulric Neisser, who was born in 1928, died in 2012, was a German-born American psychologist. Referred to as the father, some people would say the godfather, of cognitive psychology. Neisser researched and wrote about the levels of self-awareness. Now, he was one of the first psychologists of his day to unpack self-awareness to this depth. Now, it took me probably quite a number of years to even come across Neisser. Not one of the easiest, it's not like his research or his works are that accessible, because they're not. His works are a little bit more subtle. You'll find in some of the books that he wrote that are also quite difficult to get your hands on. This is a book that I'm definitely going to recommend, right? A recommended read called Memory Observed. Ulric writes about us remembering in natural contexts, right? Remembering in natural contexts. Now, it might not sound particularly impressive, but I'll be honest with you, it's actually quite a profound idea. I found it profound, and I've got quite a profound mind. Be honest with you, I know I'm the expert in my life. So he's talking about how it is that we remember, all right? Even if we're not aware that we're remembering, right? It's kind of like we're constantly remembering everything all of the time. Every decision that we make in response to something that we're remembering. So say, for example, you're walking down the road, and this is a crazy idea, right? You're walking down the road and you can smell a baker's shop. You can't see the baker's shop, but how is it that you know that what you smell is a baker's shop? It's a memory, right? So you end up anticipating the baker's shop being around the corner or being close because of something that you've remembered. Now, you're not aware of the fact that you're remembering this, all right? It's just that you've had this experience before. It's kind of like an unconscious memory. So you end up responding. You perhaps might end up like, oh, cream cake, doing a Homer Simpson or something like that. But we're all doing this. When someone looks at you in a certain way, has someone ever looked at you in a certain way before and it's triggered some sort of emotion, perhaps angst or anger or frustration or all-out rage? And why? Right? Why is it that you knew to respond in such a way to someone who looked at you in such a way? Unless, of course, you can remember someone looking at you in a similar way at some point in the past. So what I'm saying is, most of the time, we're responding to our memories. All right? Our memories, which may or may not be accurate. We've got no way of knowing. We can't go back to the past to review our past experiences from a more objective perspective. So we're going through our lives making decisions which we think are wise, but are just guesses. All right? We're just responding to memories all of the time. This is how we live our lives. It's a profound idea. A profound idea. Still bewilders me, honestly. So if I haven't bewildered you through this, well, you are wiser than you think, my friend. So let us look at these 5 levels of self-awareness. What I really want you to do, I want you to see if, or how many of these levels resonate with you, i.e. how many you can actually relate to. Level number 1, the ecological self. So I'd like to propose that everyone in the world is aware to a degree. All right? Everyone's aware to a degree. Level number 1, this ecological self is where we have an awareness of internal and external stimuli. All right? So we have an awareness of internal and external stimuli. Well, what is internal stimuli? Internal stimuli? Thoughts, feelings, beliefs, opinions, urges, lusts, greed. Yeah, it's internal stimuli. I want more, I must have, I need, I should, I could, I must do this, I mustn't do that, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. That's all internal stimuli, right? So we spend most of our lives responding to internal stimuli. This is just how we live our lives, right? Most of the internal stimuli is spawning out of things that we've remembered, i.e. memories. Right, external stimuli is stuff that happens in our outside worlds, all right? It could be the interactions that we have, the things that people say, the things that people do. Internal stimuli is then what we think the intentions are behind people's words, behind the things that people say, behind the things that people do, all right? So say, for example, I live in a place called Dunfermline in Fife in Scotland, right? Now, sometimes I go on a mission, right? Say, for example, I'm going for a walk. I'll maybe have my headphones on. In Scotland, it rains quite a bit, so I'll just maybe stick my headphones on, go for a walk, and here I am, head down. I'm completely focused on what I'm listening to, and I'm focused on getting the most out of this walk. And to be honest with you, I just don't want to be disturbed. All right, when I'm out for a walk, that's me time, right? I just want to be left alone by people. But every now and again, I'll be walking, and then someone will, I'll end up walking past some people, and I'm not paying attention to what's going on outside of me. I don't care who's there. I'm just gonna starting with the end in mind, head down. Then someone will end up grabbing my arm and say, "Oh, Kain." I'm like, what? Now, initial response, right? People could say, "Oh my goodness, Kain's a really angry man, he's really agitated, Kain's just been nasty to me, Kain's a bad man, maybe there's something wrong with me, maybe I'm not good enough, which is the reason why Kain's just been nasty to me." Now this is, what we're given reference to here is external stimulus, which is me turning around and saying, "Oh, what do you want?" Internal stimulus is then what we think about the external stimulus. Oh my goodness, Kain's just responded to me in a certain way. Either he's a bad man, maybe I'm a bad person, maybe I'm not good enough, which is why he doesn't want to speak to me. What does this mean? What does this crazy thing mean? As human beings, we are meaning-making machines, right? Every single experience that we have, all of the time, all day long, we're assigning meaning on to. Some people go through life, thinking that they're being philosophical, pondering, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? What does life mean? This within itself is a ridiculous thing to do with one's time. Here's the reason why. Because we're all assigning meaning onto everything. You can't assign meaning onto something that hasn't happened yet. You can't assign meaning onto an abstract concept. You can only assign meaning onto things that have actually happened or things that are happening. You can't assign meaning onto something that may or may not happen in the future. You can't do it. It doesn't work like this. All right, we just assign meaning onto the events, the experiences, the interactions that we have each day, for better or for worse. So guess what happens if you have an external stimuli, then assign a detrimental or a negative meaning onto this external stimuli? How do you think you're going to feel? Positive or negative? That's right, negative. So hopefully on this level now, you start to see there is a connection between thoughts and feelings and behaviour. Granted, we haven't dissected this thoroughly yet, we're gonna, but we just want to build layer upon layer, level upon level, to help you grow in understanding. So, the ecological self, where people are aware of their internal and their external stimuli. Might not be any deeper than that, might not be any more aware of that, but it's a starting point, all right? Think about some people. There are people in the world who murder children. There are some people in the world who slaughter animals for fun. Some people are so completely dissociated from themselves. All right? Now, I've said that most people operate from a degree of awareness, but some people are completely unaware. Some people go through life giving no consideration to what they're doing or what they're saying or how they're being received by other people or the impact that they're actually having on other people's lives. Hence the reason so many of these prisons are full. Now, I'm not saying that people don't later on go on to have regrets, because people do, right? I've met many people, I've had conversations with many people in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s, riddled with regret. People who ended up not investing any time into the children, focused more on work or making money or building a business or something like that. They get into their 60s or the 70s, the kids have grown up and left home, and they're left and completely estranged from their own kids. So, oh my goodness, I missed it. Awareness is something that we want to be growing in today, by the way, not in 20 years' time. You've only got one life. If you are not aware of what you're doing today and why you're doing what you're doing, you stand at risk of missing much in life, right? Which you may go on to later regret. So let us move on. Level 2, the interpersonal self. Right? The interpersonal self is about the level of awareness that we have of the interactions we have with other people. All right. So I'm aware right now that I'm interacting with you. I'm also aware that on some level you're interacting with me. Now, granted, we're not in the same room. Granted, it's not like this is a two-way exchange of ideas, i.e. a dialogue. All right. But I am just completely aware that what I say and how well I say what I say will determine how well I'm received by you. So my job, my role in life is teacher, right? I exist to teach concepts such as this. So if I am not aware of how it is that you might be receiving me, then I could just voice my opinions, I could just be completely academic, I could just be totally rational, communicating in just a solely rational way, talking really complex theories, not really caring whether you understand any of this stuff or not. All right? There are many people who operate in this field who are still immersed in either the emotional mind or the rational mind. Right? Any wise teacher must be grounded in the wise mind. Right? Why? Because when we're grounded and established in the wise mind, we can communicate to all categories of people. We can relate to people who are more rationally minded because we can go deep in context and theory if we need to, but then we can also become naturally more relational as we interact with people. So I'm doing my best here to deliver this content in a reasonably balanced way. But again, you get to decide whether I'm doing a good job or not. All right. So I wanted to give you an example here, right? Our interpersonal self is about aware of the interactions we're having with others. There's a principle, it's an interesting principle, that if you want to gauge the effectiveness of your communications, right, look at the response that you get from other people. If people are asking you questions, if people want to be around you, then there's a pretty good chance that you communicate in a relatively balanced and effective way. If you're communicating in an effective and a relatively balanced way, it's most likely because you're aware of other people when you're interacting with them. If your primary focus is what you're thinking and how you're feeling, then you stand at risk of becoming completely unrelatable, right? And this is where many people get stuck, right? Some people focus more on their internal stimuli, their external stimuli, and then become completely irrelevant to other people in the process. So developing this interpersonal self, this degree of awareness of the interactions we have with other people, how well we're being received, how it is that other people might actually need to receive us, gets our minds thinking in a completely different way. We just begin now to become socially aware. That's essentially what this is about. It's about social awareness. This is kind of self-awareness, but this is more social awareness. All right, it's kind of like a different type of intelligence. There's then the extended self. The extended self is fascinating. Now, I don't know whether you're brand new to cognitive behavioural therapy, cognitive psychology in general as a field of study. But what you'll find is that if you really invest time and effort into reflecting and studying and researching many of these modalities and schools of thinking, the more you're going to come to understand yourself. Why? Because many theories provoke us to explore different components of our lives. Sometimes why it is that we're being the way that we are in the present. Sometimes how it is that we've learned to be certain ways in response to the experiences we've had in the past.